Afternoon all, a little bit earlier than normal thanks to that midday kickoff. A 2-0 win in the FA Cup third round for Norwich this lunchtime over Coventry. Championship opposition through fairly smoothly. Not the prettiest of games, certainly not the second half. It became pretty scrappy, but safely through into, quite oddly, the fourth and fifth round, which is unusual. They're both being made on Monday night. Of course, with everything that's going on at the moment, the FA Cup does have a slightly odd feel to it anyway, because, you've seen Derby, for instance, lose today with a very young team to a non-league side in Chorley. Aston Villa last night having to play Liverpool with the kids as well. So it has got a quite different feel. But thankfully, COVID and all that sort of stuff didn't have too big a bearing on this game. The main effect was that Tim Krul wasn't available. He might not have played anyway, but Daniel Barden came in and did really well. I'm going to straight off the bat say that he was man of the match. He was the one player who I'd give 8 out of 10 for in the Norwich team. 20 years old, only his third appearance, and I think he did really well, really earned his clean sheet. Not that he was under heavy pressure, but he definitely did have work that he had to get through, and earned his clean sheet. So he will be very happy with that, and Daniel Farke sounds very happy with it as well. It's eased the pressure a little bit on getting in another goalkeeper, although it sounds pretty likely they still will look to get in a new number two to replace Michael McGovern. And I would imagine that's mainly because Tim Krul is obviously just back from an injury, which ended up being longer than they expected, didn't it, with that thigh? So 9 games it was before Krul returned against Barnsley. So it would make sense to get someone more experienced in, just in case something goes wrong with Krul. That's the way it works with goalkeepers, isn't it? So a 2-0 win, but 2 goals in barely a minute. I think it was just over a minute. Kenny McLean opened the scoring in the 6th minute, and then Jordan Hugill in the 7th. And that was second goal of the season for both of them. Todd Cantwell set up the first, and the Hugill goal was set up by Poeta, which I think is his first assist as well. Norwich made 7 changes for this, as expected, made quite a few, but Daniel did name a strong bench. And by the end of the game, Norwich finished with Timu Pukki, Emi Buendia, Max Aarons, Oliver Skipp, all on the pitch. And who was the other player that came on? I said Aarons, and Grant Hanley was the other one who came on at half time, which was Christoph Zimmerman, who had it sounds like a bit of an injury scare in terms of his hip, but they're hoping it's nothing too major. They just took him off as a precaution, got Hanley on, and that probably explains why Hanley was on the bench instead of Omobama Dele as well. But that strong bench, it was Daniel's signal, really, that they wanted to win this game. If you look at that objectively, then one of the big reasons, of course, Norwich are facing a big loss. When the finances came out, when was that? November time. Last financial year, they lost 12.5 million because of COVID. They were expecting it to be another 12.5 million because of COVID. Just this big black hole created by what you can see around me right at this moment in time, empty stands, again, behind closed doors again today. So if you get a glamour tie in the 4th round, you're away to whoever, away at Tottenham or something, say like last season, and you end up on BBC One or BT Sport, then you get a nice healthy chunk. You can get like 250,000, can't you? And obviously there's prize money. Today, I think it was 60,000 for the winner, and then it goes up to 90,000 in the 4th round. So any of that, which will be unbudgeted money, of course, is going to be very welcome for just keeping things flowing. But I think more than that, just if you look at it in footballing terms, another game is helpful. You look at the players that started today, Bali Mumba and Javi Quintilla at either fullback position, both making their comeback from injury. Signs of rust from both of them. A few decent moments, probably mainly for Mumba more than Quintilla, who persevered. But yeah, there was definitely rust to be shaken off there. This is good for them, and having a game in the 4th round, which will mean I'm not sure on the date here, but it's the second to last game of January, which is supposed to be Millwall away, which, as far as I know now, means is postponed. And whatever 4th round tie will then allow them some more minutes. Jordan Hugill starts up front, gets his goal, only his 2nd goal of the season, first in open play, first at Carrow Road. He gets, again, I've got that here because it was 5 subs again. I did make a note of them all. When did Pukki come on? 72nd minute, same as Buendia when he came on for Cantwell. And, that's 70 minutes in the tank for Hugill, which is very, very helpful for him. Again, on him, while I'm mentioning it, wouldn't say they really adjusted to play to a start. The goal was just a perfect example of that. Poeta gets to the byline, a couple of step overs, nice little cross to the near post. Hugo does what he is good at, beats his man in the air, nods it in from close range past the keeper. So that's the sort of goal that he wants to be scoring, but he doesn't tend to get that many of those chances playing in this sort of Farke style, does he? So, yes, you got him. Poeta starts on the left wing. Cantwell was needed to play on the right. Kenny McLean was pushed forward into the attacking midfield role. Jacob Sorensen, because Kintier was back, he got to play in central midfield alongside Alex Tettey. And it was, at first half, Sorensen looked pretty bright. There was some good passing in there, but he looked a bit like he was running on empty in the second half, to be honest. And as I say, Skip came on for him in the closing stages. Zimmerman hadn't been in the last league game, so if he hadn't have got the little injury, then it would have been good for him. But really, I suppose they have got through this, other than that hopefully minor injury for Zimmerman, reasonably unscathed, no red cards, although there was an incident in the second half. It got tetchy, shall we say, a few handbags here and there, and it was in particular between the right back, Julian Da Costa, and Todd Cantwell. He'd caught Todd a couple of times, and Todd sort of went down quite dramatically, and he took exception to that, and then he then in the second half skinned Kintier, went down the right, and there was sort of a bit of a bundle of bodies really, and then him and Cantwell have a bit of a set too. He's on the floor, Cantwell shoves him very similarly to what Adam Eder got sent off for against Wickham, actually. Not with quite the same sort of force and aggression, thankfully. Todd does get booked for it. Da Costa gets away with it, but gets another telling off from the referee. But they were really going at each other, and Da Costa had initially reacted very angrily, and the players had to be separated. At the moment, just because Todd had put his hands on him, and even though it was just a little push, you thought, well, it could easily be a red card here. Thankfully, it wasn't. And then, if that had come, then that has an effect on the league. But touch wood, they've got through this without anything other than a 2-0 win, a clean sheet for a young lad in goal, progress, keeping the momentum building. I think that's still, 2 defeats in 20 games, despite all the changes that were made today. So you can't really complain in terms of the overall impact on the season. But we shall see. In terms of ratings, I think as I say, Barden I'll give an 8. McLean, who I thought was really good, really full of energy again. He's in a good flow, isn't he? Did look like he was going to go off injured at one point, and let out a bit of a tirade at the referee for not getting a foul for the one that had sort of left him limping around. But thankfully carried on and really should have made it 3-0 in injury time. So yeah, I'll give McLean, Tettey, and Gibson a 7, and the rest 6 is really big. The second half was a pretty ugly game, really. It was really, really scrappy. Just very briefly to go through the events of the game, Coventry actually started pretty well. They sort of flew out of the traps, and Daniel Barden was tested early. Barley Mumba had to make one. Well, it looked pretty certain that it was a block on Maxime Biamu, the man who scored the late equaliser here in the league in November. But the referee didn't give it, and Coventry would almost just bewildered by it, that he hadn't given a corner early doors, and they were pressing Norwich really hard. They were onto Barden, onto Zimmerman, onto Gibson, trying to stop them from setting the tempo out from the back, and they looked the better side. But then just all of a sudden, Cantwell threads McLean into the box, nice turn, slots it past the keeper nice and easily, 1-0. And immediately the Coventry heads just dropped, and their body language looked different. They weren't pressing, and they lost their way. I think, to be quite honest, they were just so disappointed that they had conceded an early goal here at Carrow Road against the leaders. They knew they were facing a real uphill battle, and then with it barely a minute later, that goal from Hugo that I've already mentioned, and it's 2-0, and they really have got a long day ahead of them. Cantwell curled a shot just wide after that as well, when they were still sort of at 6s and 7s. But they did come back into it, and they made it difficult for Norwich in the second half. I think that's the thing. They managed to turn it into a scrap, into an arm wrestle, and Mark Robbins will be at least pleased that they showed some character and came back into it, because at that point it looked like they could be on the end of a thrashing. Possibly still should have, if Norwich had been able to sort of keep their flow. But after half time, they did lose their rhythm, and you did start to see the rustiness and players who haven't played a lot of minutes recently. There was a shot from Biamu, which came after Zimmerman and Gibson got a bit of a muddle at the back, which he fired wide. Early in the second half, Barden denied the same player, sort of flicked shot across him and reacted to it. And there was another one that was a really good save, actually. Same player, Biamu, who turned Gibson, I think it was, and from quite close range hit it pretty powerfully, and Gibson stuck out a big strong right hand, and fortunately, because I think it actually hit Grant Hanley in the face after that, but Gibson was able to clear it. That was probably the pick of his saves of the day, and I would say it wasn't really a spectacular display from him today, but he got through a lot of work, claiming crosses, getting down low to a few shots and crosses and things like that. He was busy. He did a lot of work, and also, again, as he has done in all three of his appearances, has looked good with the ball at his feet. Distribution is not a problem for him at all. So, but Norwich should have made it 3. Buendia and Pukki, as I say, came on. Buendia gets Pukki through, beats his man really well, and then pokes across the keeper, but hits the post. Barden's second minute of injury time just clears out Gibson and Bakayoko to make sure that he's not going to lose his clean sheet in injury time, which I thought was a real good show of character, and brave as well. He could have got hurt doing that, but he just made sure that nothing was getting near his goal. And then it definitely should have been 3-0 in the 4th minute of injury time. Ben Gibson plays a lovely ball out to the left wing. Buendia, lovely touch in loads of space, and McLean, like a man possessed, charging through the middle, can see all the space opening up for him, gets the ball from Buendia, and you just think he's just going to slot it away 3-0, and that puts the cherry on the cake, but gets it completely wrong and side foots it wide, quite horribly in the end. But never mind, 2-0 through to the third round of the FA Cup, and strangely the first FA Cup win at Carrow Road since 2012, since it was a 4-1 win against Burnley, wasn't it, under Lambert, which if I remember rightly was when Burnley were a Championship side and of course Norwich were a Premier League side. And they haven't won an FA Cup game here since then, which seems ridiculous because last year, there was Preston, Burnley, Tottenham away, then Manchester United here in the quarterfinals and lost in extra time. You remember that brilliant goal from Campwell and the closer red card late in normal time. So that was 8 games, 5 defeats at Carrow Road since that win in 2012. Of course, you don't really need reminding of the defeat to Luton and Leicester, but I mean there were a couple of decent draws in there. To be fair, they held Chelsea here before going to Stamford Bridge, and that Jamal Lewis goal. Fulham and Southampton, they took them to replays as well. So yeah, that's a nice little stat. And also, what was almost a disconcerting feel at half time was that Norwich had a cushion. They were 2-0 up at half time here at Carrow Road. Now, this season, they were 3-1 up at Bristol City, so they had that cushion there. But from a quick look back at the fixtures, I think that's the first time since April 2019 when they beat QPR 4-0 and they were 3-0 up at half-time. That's the first time they've had a 2-goal lead at Carrow Road since then, so not far off 2 years. So that was nice to be able to sort of relax into the game a little bit from there. And as I say, the 4th and 5th round draws are on Monday night. The games are still pretty early, but we saw Liverpool go through last night and Wolves, wasn't it? Millwall are through, Everton, Luton, Nottingham Forest and Chorley, as mentioned earlier as well. So we shall see. Of course, Picnic.com will let you know all the details about the draw, and I suppose the draw doesn't have quite the same magic for supporters this year, does it? Or not at all, because even if it is Chorley away or Tottenham away, or anyone at home, it doesn't really matter, does it? We know that sadly supporters are not going to be there, probably not going to be in here for the rest of this season. Maybe if the rollout of the vaccine and stuff goes well, there might be some fans back here in sort of pilot games, low attendances before the end of the season. But that's a pretty depressing thought, which we'll put off for another day, shall we? I suppose the bigger conversation, as I mentioned in the video verdict after the Barnsley game, is that, will there be a circuit breaker in football? We've seen over 100 positive cases throughout the Football League, which sounds a lot, but then, averages out to about 2 per club. They are now increasing their testing a lot. It's going to be twice a week in the EFL like it is in the Premier League. They're tightening up the regulations, as Daniel Farker spoke about in the pre-match press conference. Got to make training grounds really safe, make sure that players are taking that responsibility seriously to keep football going, because it is at least providing a bit of entertainment for people. It's not the same. We all know that. We're persevering with things as best we can, and fortunate in Norwich circles that things are going well, aren't they? And that it's providing some smiles for fans, for pundits, for the players. After such a horrible end to last season, we are a little bit fortunate that it is at least providing some positivity, but it does all still feel pretty surreal, doesn't it? And almost like we're going to get to next season and it will kind of feel like this season didn't happen and will just sort of be forgotten. And if Norwich are back in the Premier League, then it's going to feel even stranger, of course, isn't it? But there we go. A Carrow Road win in the FA Cup for the first time since 2012. 2-0 win over Coventry. Goals from Kenny McLean and Jordan Hugill. Thanks very much for watching. Let us know what you thought in the comments below. Let us know your man of the match and your ratings as well, if you would like. But for now, head over to pinkman.com for all the reaction and analysis.